Tom Homan, who's here, White House border czar, has been a great fighter for restoring America's sovereignty, and we've worked very well with him as Florida has really taken the lead on a lot of these issues at the state level. We're also joined by our State Board of Immigration Enforcement Executive Director Anthony Coker, David Gritty, Deputy ICE Field Director, Florida Division of Emergency Management Executive Director Kevin Guthrie, Mark Glass, FDLE Commissioner, and then Prel Gwynn from the Florida Department of Agriculture Law Enforcement Captain. I think many people know when President Trump won the 2024 election, that marked a very critical juncture in the nation's history with respect to whether we would be a country with sovereign borders and the rule of law, or whether we were going to continue to allow millions and millions of people just flood in that we had no idea who they were. And that was a major issue in the election, and there was much work to do to make sure that the voters' mandate was fulfilled. And we knew in the state of Florida that the federal government just didn't have the resources at the outset that they needed to be able to do that job effectively of having, yes, securing the border with U.S. and Mexico, but also having interior enforcement so that folks who've come illegally would be subjected to the rule of law. So in January of 2025, I called a special session of the Florida legislature. We had a little bit of push and pull on that, but we ended up getting the job done to where we were the only state in America that requires cooperation with all state and federal law enforcement agencies in Florida with the Department of Homeland Security. And those 287G agreements that have been done, we have 80% more 287G agreements in Florida than any other state. The next state, we're 80% more. Obviously, you have some that are sanctuary states, so they're doing the opposite of 287G. They're trying to interdict and prevent the enforcement of federal immigration laws. But we understood that this was going to be a team effort. We understood it was going to be important, and that's for a variety of reasons. I mean, one, just to make sure that you're upholding the rule of law. Two, safety. We've seen criminal aliens time and time again offending across the United States, including in Florida, and those are crimes that would not have been able to be committed had the immigration laws been enforced. We also had a responsibility to protect all the taxpayer issues involving schools and health care and the criminal justice system, where illegal immigration obviously imposes a very, very hefty burden all across the United States, but including in the state of Florida. So we have acted and really set the standard. As of today, if you look at all 287G arrests, immigration arrests around the country, 40% of them are Florida. Of the entire country, we have 40% of them. No state has stepped up, not even close, the way Florida has, to be able to get the job done. So this relationship was very strong in the early going, but it took a little bit to get everyone to just get up and running to where we were working seamlessly. So as we were doing that, we would ask DHS, well, how can we be helpful? What specifically? We're on the team. We have to cooperate. We want to cooperate. What can we do? And there are a number of things, but one of the things was they just didn't have space to be able to house people as they were being processed prior to being deported. And Florida, for whatever reason, had very small number of beds for DHS. And so they asked us to be able to help with that. And so the advent of the facility here at Alligator Alcatraz was, we did not want to see illegal aliens, particularly the ones that were being targeted in these stings that have serious records. We didn't want to be in a situation where they're being released back on the street because there's not sufficient bed space for DHS or bed space in Florida's existing facilities. And so the advent of this was an emergency situation. The reconciliation, they didn't have the funding that they eventually got when they did the reconciliation bill. We wanted to make it so that you would be able to have this be temporary. Hopefully they'd be here as small amount of time as possible, and then you have the runway right back here. Then they can be flied out presumably to their home countries or staged to be able to make that happen. And it required a lot of logistical know-how, a lot of wherewithal. I think that once the word went down that this was something that DHS wanted to see done, you know, I think it took us, I mean, Kevin Guthrie could tell me, I think it took us like less than 2 weeks, 10 days to be able to be ready to go. And that was something that's not easy. So as of now, this facility having this has led to almost 21,000 deportations, and those would be people by and large who would have been released back into society in Florida had this space not been there. Now, who are some of these people? I've got a list of a lot of people here, massive rap sheets. Elias Juarez, sexual battery of minor niece, previously deported and subject to an ICE removal order. Felix Ramon Nieves Mejias from Venezuela in Kissimmee, arrested by Florida Highway Patrol. Interpol red notice for aggravated homicide in Brazil, suspected Tren de Aragua member, identified as national security threat. Kendrick Smillian from the Bahamas, Pompano Beach, picked up by Highway Patrol. Kidnapping, aggravated assault, aggravated battery, drug trafficking. Pablo Gomez from Cuba, FHP, criminal history including second-degree homicide, kidnapping, armed robbery, armed home invasion, burglary, fraud, grand theft. McClenny Desmolet from Haiti, wanted by Brazilian authorities for rape, subject of an Interpol red notice. Orlando Dupiran, Orlando, Florida, picked up by Highway Patrol. 116 felony convictions, including drug distribution, assault with a deadly weapon, organized fraud, and Medicaid fraud. Sosa Ramos, DUI, domestic violence battery, driving offenses. We have Ariel Bueno Valdez, Pensacola, picked up, convicted of sexual battery of 5-year-old child and designated a Florida sexual predator. You have sexual predator from Vietnam. You have armed sexual battery, burglary, child sex offenses from Cristino Linares Rivera. You have folks charged with more than 200 grams of fentanyl trafficking, like Luchin Daly from Jamaica. From El Salvador, you have a fellow wanted on warrants for sexual battery and drug trafficking. Twice deported, MS-13 gang member. On and on it goes. The rap sheet is really incredible about what's come through here in this facility. And how could it be that you'd want to have those people released back onto the street? No, that's not the way we roll. So I have no doubt that when you start talking about 21,000 folks, that is, without question, has made our state safer, and it's made the country safer as well. Now, we've also done more, probably about 30-some thousand overall in terms of detention and staging, where DHS would then pick up for removal from the country, because we also have the deportation depot up in Baker County. So that was probably, I think that's almost 10,000 that have gone through there, and that's also been very effective as well. So we're proud to be able to be in this fight. But at the same time, you know, I said from the beginning that this was a emergency solution that would be temporary, that once DHS had the wherewithal to be able to handle these illegal aliens, particularly the criminal illegal aliens, that they would be able to do so, and we would still help. We'll still do the 287G. We're still going to be participating in that. But in terms of us managing this facility, to the minute that that's no longer needed, then we obviously would break down to the facility. And so Alligator Alcatraz fulfilled the role that it was designed to serve. Today it now has 0 detainees. It has helped remove many, many dangerous people from the street and get them out of not only the state of Florida, but the United States of America. The detainees that were here are still in federal custody. The demobilization efforts here at this facility are underway. We stood this up. We surged critical resources. We built critical infrastructure. We were able to manage very complex operations, and we were able to efficiently execute the mission when called upon. There's no question that this mission has made the state of Florida safer. There's no question that releasing some of these folks would have represented a clear and present danger to the well-being of Floridians up and down the Florida Peninsula. Our efforts to support this important mission of immigration enforcement continues. Our 287G agreements are still in effect. Our Baker County facility is still in operation, and the mission continues. But DHS is in a better footing. DHS has more capacity to be able to handle these folks. And I always said, we're only doing this because it's necessary. The minute that they have the capacity to handle these folks and not release them on the street, we're going to be supporting those efforts. And so we've arrived at that point, and I'm proud of everybody who worked very hard to help keep the state of Florida safe, to stand up for the rule of law and American sovereignty, and ultimately this saved lives. I have no doubt that this saved lives. All right, we're going to hear from Tom Homan, and we're going to hear from Director Coker. Tom?
All right, first of all, I want to thank Governor DeSantis, state of Florida, for the cooperation and partnership. He's right. When the President of the United States, Donald Trump, came in office, he declared a national emergency. Governor DeSantis was on the phone with me within days, understanding the President declared a national emergency. How can I help? We had many discussions, and he did. He stepped up in a time of need, and he continues to step up. Today doesn't end the cooperation. He told you a few minutes ago, his 287G numbers are beyond any other state in the country, by far. Which means what? That means more criminal aliens are off the street in your neighborhoods in the state of Florida, making Florida safer, making this country safer. You know, President Trump came in office. Why did he declare a national emergency? Let's be clear where we were at and why the Governor DeSantis stepped up. Millions of illegal aliens were released in the United States, in my opinion, illegally, by the last administration. They say they were vetted, but then we find out they weren't properly vetted. We don't have access to many criminal databases in other countries. Matter of fact, many of these countries don't have an NCIC. So to say they're properly vetted means they're vetted against our databases, but we didn't have their criminal history in other states. Millions of illegal aliens released on the streets without proper vetting. National security threats. Under Trump 45, we had 14 apprehended on the southern border. Under Joe Biden, over 400. Sex trafficking of women and children were sky high. We know we had 2.1 million known gotaways. Why did 2.1 million people pay more to get away? Why didn't they take advantage of the Biden policies? Come in, turn yourself into Border Patrol, get released within 24 hours, get a free airplane to the city of your choice, get a free hotel room, get free medical care, get 3 meals a day, get work authorization within a few months, which is the real reason they came here. Why did 2.1 million people pay more not to take advantage of that giveaway? Because they didn't want to be fingerprinted. They didn't want to be vetted. These are your criminals. These are the people who are trafficking women and children, and these are people from terror-sponsored countries. So President Trump did the right thing, declared a national emergency for the safety and security of this nation. And Governor DeSantis was one of the first governors to step up, him and Governor Abbott. Stepped up immediately. Governor Abbott stepped up 4 years in the Biden administration trying to secure the border best he could. He did a damn good job. So that's why there's a national emergency. And where is President Trump's administration is right now? Within 7 to 8 weeks, we got the most secure border in the history of this nation. And the data proves it. The most secure border in the history of this nation was achieved under President Trump. Record numbers of arrests and deportations. Look at the numbers this morning. Over 1 million departures since he's been in the Oval Office. There's no president that's done that. And for those in the media keep saying that, we're not keeping to our promise of, looking for criminals, then you're looking at the wrong data. the data I see every day is 60 to 70% of everybody we arrest is a criminal or pending criminal charges. What does that mean? That means this country is safer every day because of the leadership of President Trump. Now, a lot of people question, well, we should be arresting everybody. Well, we are. But I would rather have 60% criminal than 40% criminal. The targeting of public safety threats and national security threats are the priority of the president, and we're achieving that. Well, let's talk about the difference in the state of Florida and what Governor DeSantis has done here with the 287G program. 50 states in this nation, Governor DeSantis accounts for 40% of all 287G arrests. Let's talk about the partnership that we have with every single sheriff in the state of Florida. What does that mean? That means an illegal alien that's been locked in a jail cell, apparently because he's a public safety threat or a flight risk or some other reason, isn't walking out of that jail back in the streets of Florida. So what does that mean? That means less agents in the neighborhoods looking for that criminal, which means the communities are safer. Let's compare like the state of New York, who just signed legislation that we lost cooperation, we lost all the 287G programs, lost cooperation in the jails. And I'll tell you the same thing I told the governor of New York. If you lock us out of the jail so one agent can arrest one bad guy in the safety and security of a jail, which is safer for the community, safer for the officer, safer for the alien, that's going to force us into the street to find the bad guy. And when we find them, many times they're with others. Others are in the country illegally, but may not be a public safety threat. Well, they're coming too, because we're going to force immigration law. That's what American people wanted when they voted for President Trump. So when you become a sanctuary state and do the complete opposite what the state of Florida does, there's going to be more collateral arrests, there's going to be more agents in your neighborhood, and your community is going to be unsafe. It doesn't make sense to me for any public safety threat illegal alien to be released back into the community to reoffend. We hope more governors follow the lead of Governor DeSantis. President Trump achieved the most secure border in the history of this nation. He has record numbers of arrests and deportations, majority of them criminals, which means this country is safer every day. President Trump's leadership have located 147,000 children that were smuggled under the last administration, they lost track of and weren't even looking for. I'm sick and tired of reading in the media how inhumane the Trump administration is. 147,000 children. And we got many more to look for. There's almost 300,000 children unaccounted for. President Trump made a commitment to the American people. I make that same commitment. We're not going to give up until we find every single one of them. We know that some have already died, some from natural causes, some from violence. We know that some that we found and rescued were victims of sex trafficking. We know that some were in forced labor. It's President Trump and his leadership that are rescuing these children. People say this administration is inhumane. Let me tell you something. Illegal immigration right now is down 97% on the border. What does that mean? That means less women are being sexually assaulted making that journey. That means less children are dying making that journey. That means less fentanyl is getting in the country to kill Americans. That means less national security threats are being led in this country. This border is locked down at the highest level ever. And that is why I say, and I am proud to say, President Trump's the greatest president in my lifetime. And the data proves it. No one's done it better. What President Trump is doing every day is saving thousands of lives by securing that border. And we're going to keep our commitment. Look, Governor DeSantis did a good job, and he's going to continue doing what he's doing to help us make this country safe again. This isn't an end of relationship. This is a continuation. We'll continue to go out, we'll continue to enforce immigration laws. We're going to continue to prioritize public safety threats first. But let me make it clear. If you're in the country illegally, you're not off the table. And for those people who say, well, why don't you just arrest criminals? Why do you arrest others that may have been here, 8 or 9 years? If that's the message you want to send to the whole world, enter this country illegally, it's a crime, don't worry about it. Get order removed by an immigration judge, you don't have to leave, Don't worry about it. As long as you don't commit another crime, no one's looking for you. If that's the message you want to send to the whole world, we're never going to fix this problem. Which means the most vulnerable people in the world will make that dangerous journey, give their life savings to the cartels to come to this country at great risk and great peril. Secure borders is the most humane thing you can do. And that's why we're going to keep enforcing the law. That's why we're going to keep having a record number of arrests and deportations. This is the American people voted for, and that's what we're going to continue to do. And I thank Governor DeSantis for his leadership and his partnership with the Trump administration. Him, Governor Abbott, you know, a lot of the governors in these red states, they're leading by example. They care about their communities. They believe law enforcement should work with law enforcement. I look forward to our continued partnership and the success of this administration with the help of the great governors in this country.
Go ahead.
Thank you and good afternoon. Thank you, Governor DeSantis. Thank you, Board Czar Homan. Pleasure to be here today. My name is Anthony Coker. I'm the Director of Immigration Enforcement for the great state of Florida. Honored to be here today to share the stage with some of the greatest men I've ever had the privilege to work with. The dedication of Governor DeSantis and Board Czar Homan to the safety and security of our country and our state is bar none. In the past 7.5 years, Governor DeSantis has transformed the state of Florida to be a conservative stronghold focused on bringing back the American dream for Florida families and ensuring the safety, security, and affordability continue to be integral focus of his administration. Our Board Czar Tom Homan is the definition of a man who has selflessly served this country for the past 30 years. I've had the pleasure of hearing Tom speak a couple times, and I understand that if it wasn't for his love of and commitment to our country and his trust and belief in the leadership of President Donald Trump, he would be happily retired. So to Governor DeSantis, Board Czar Homan, and to everyone else here to support FDLE Commissioner Mark Glass, Florida Division of Mercy Management, Director Kevin Guthrie, Director Kerner, ICE, our ICE partners, our Border Patrol partners. This is an all-team effort, and we appreciate everyone's assistance. Today we are here to highlight Florida's leadership in supporting the Immigration and Customs Enforcement public safety mission through our partnership with Department of Homeland Security. Under Governor DeSantis' leadership, Florida has taken decisive action to assist in the enforcement of immigration laws, including the expansion of the 287G agreements that strengthen cooperation between state, local, and federal law enforcement agencies. These partnerships have provided law enforcement with additional tools to identify and arrest individuals who are in the country unlawfully and who have been arrested for serious criminal offenses. Through these efforts, dangerous offenders, who Governor DeSantis spoke about today, that did pose a serious threat to communities have been identified and removed from our streets, then again making Florida a safer place to live, work, and raise a family. Florida has also stepped up to provide additional detention capacity through the Alligator Alcatraz facility, supporting federal immigration operations during periods of increased enforcement activity. Facilities like this play an important role by ensuring that individuals awaiting immigration proceedings can be securely and humanely housed while going through removal proceedings. As Governor DeSantis has said, Alligator Alcatraz today has 0 detainees, which means mission success for Florida. None of this would have been possible without the strong leadership and a commitment to enforcing the law. President Donald Trump made border security and immigration enforcement a national priority, and Governor DeSantis ensured that Florida would be the strongest state partner in those efforts. Together, they demonstrated that when federal and state governments work in cooperation and coordination, they can enhance public safety, strengthen the rule of law, and deliver results for the American people. Florida's message is simple. We will continue to support policies that prioritize the safety of our communities, uphold the law, and protect the citizens of our state. We are proud of the work that has been accomplished and will remain committed to doing our part to keep Florida safe. Thank you and God bless.
All right. Well, we're thankful for everyone that worked hard over this. The numbers that was achieved is there's no other state that was able to do that, and I know it's not easy, and there was a lot of great effort on it. So we're going to continue the partnership. We understand the mission continues. We're still doing the Baker County facility, and we're also in discussions about how else we could be helpful, maybe using some of our existing corrections footprint, and who knows what'll end up happening on all that. But this made a difference. No doubt it saved lives, and it's helping to fulfill the mission. So okay, we'll have some questions. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Governor. How about you to be a delivery enforcement
We have gotten a tranche. We will get it. I mean, I was there with Tom and the president, and the president said, get Florida their money. And Tom's going to make sure. Part of it, I think, is just bureaucracy. We actually just got a FEMA reimbursement either this week or last. Not for this. We had already gotten a tranche for this. But we got a FEMA reimbursement for COVID. In 2026, we got a FEMA reimbursement. So, you know, just it's the reality is how they do that. But the president came, you know, he committed to support the effort with that, and he's been very supportive of everything. So that'll happen. They obviously have more money now than they did 9 months ago. I know they have new leadership at the agency, which I think the current secretary is interested in fulfilling these obligations, not just to Florida, but to a variety of states. So you will see that. And that will be reimbursed. But here's the deal. 21,000 people, with some of the rap sheets that I said, had this facility not existed, there would not have been a place to put these people. While they were waiting deportation, they would have been put back on the street. That would have harmed Floridians. I've met angel moms. I've met a lot of angel moms, and the number of them that I've met have lost a loved one at the hands of an illegal alien that had already been deported and came back, or was out pending some type of charges, or should have been deported, is a very, very high percentage of them. And you can't put a price tag on that. So yes, we did it. The agreement was reimbursed. We will get reimbursed. But, you know, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to not want to keep our people safe. That would not be a decision that I would ever make. We've got to do what it takes to keep people safe. And there's no question that people are safer as a result of that. We prevented preventable crimes. And that's all the people have always been asking is just enforce the law. And I don't want to be in a situation where someone gets killed because somebody who was here shouldn't have even been in the country. You know, that's a failure of government. And President Trump had a big mess to deal with, and they've made great progress, but it can't be done without state support. So we're stepping up and we're getting the job done. They've gotten some of it. You know, there's always money coming back and forth. There's a lot more to go, and they'll get it. They'll get it. You know, when we do hurricanes, if we so we started this facility in the summer of last year, I think July or August. If we had a hurricane then, we would have done things subject to FEMA reimbursement. The chance of us getting all the FEMA reimbursement would be zero for a hurricane. I mean, it's just the way they operate. But I know that Tom is going to help grease the skids on some of that. Like, the good thing about Florida is we've got a big budget surplus. We've got a maxed out rainy day fund. I'm going to sign a budget here in the next few days that's going to represent the 4th straight year of reducing state spending. How many other states can say that you're actually reducing spending? And that's not just adjusted for inflation. That's nominal dollars that are going down. So we've got a lot of resources to work with. We obviously have fund for disaster response, but even just the general surplus revenues in both general revenue trust fund is strong, and it has been very strong throughout pretty much my entire tenure, you know, as governor, certainly in the last 5 or 6 years. So we're in great spot, and we will get reimbursed, but it's not like if we don't get reimbursed everything next week that somehow the state is going to suffer fiscally. We won't. I mean, we have going what we need, and so it'll happen in due time. So on the second part, I would say that possibility would be negligible. This was an emergency situation. DHS did not have resources. The funding they got last summer had not passed yet. And they were in a situation where they could not keep these people. They didn't know what to do with them. They didn't have the space. So we did this partially because we wanted access to airport so that once they were here, they were going. Nobody escaped from Alligator Alcatraz. I mean, this is a secure facility. So they were able to be flown out of here, and the flights were regular and the flights were routine, and they got into a good thing. So, but it served its purpose for the time. You know, now that they have resources, it is the federal government's responsibility to be able to process these folks, right? We stepped up because there was a gap, but my hope is that they'll be able to handle that. Now, we still have the Baker facility. That's a little bit different than this one. And there could be other existing facilities we have. Maybe we have some space in one of our correctional institutes where they could come in. It won't be done through FEMA reimbursements because they have money now, so it'll be handled a little bit different in that direction. But I don't think you would see us doing this again. This was temporary. This was an emergency measure, and we thought that it would be 6 to 12 months, and that's what ended up happening. Yeah.
Hey, look, let's not, you're talking about the reimbursements. Let's remember, let's not forget, the Democrats shut down DHS for months, which slowed the progress in everything. So let's keep that in mind. I mean, things are, Secretary Mark Wayne Mullins doing a great job. He's moving things along. But let's remember what happened. The Democrats shut down the Department of Homeland Security for months. So things fell behind. But we're back on mark.
Yeah, so I mean, I think you're talking about a matter of days to weeks, probably 7 to 14 days, most likely. Yeah, so it's quick.
Earlier this month, DHS told us that detainees were transferred because of hurricane season concerns. Today, you're saying the facility is closing because DHS no longer needs this space. Which was the primary